Salutare dragilor! Bine ați venit la Coffee and Cream, tot de aici din Miami. De data aceasta avem o ediție super specială. Invitatul meu vine din Brazilia, este unul dintre numele cele mai importante din Jiu Jitsu în întreaga lume și mai ales aici în Statele Unite, unde au mai multe școli și academii. Invitatul meu de astăzi, împreună cu familia lui, Valente Brothers, antrenează Armata Statelor Unite, celebrități de aici, din Statele Unite, pe care le cunoașteți cu toții și vom vorbi despre toate acestea. FBI, servicii secrete, suntem chiar aici, în locul unde se întâmplă magia, în sală, de aceea a trebuit în mod respectuos să mă îmbrac în costumul de Jiu Jitsu și îl am lângă mine pe Pedro Valente de la Valente Brothers. Pedro, welcome to Coffee and Cream.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for giving me the honor of doing this interview with you.
It's a pleasure, thank you. And I could understand what you said, amazing.
Of course.
Exactly. I guess I speak Romanian.
Actually, we are speaking Romanian right now.
No, it's great.
O să vorbim în engleză și o să avem subtitrări, așa că de acum încolo, în mod respectuos, o să vorbesc cu invitatul meu. So, my first question to you is, do you drink coffee?
I don't. Unfortunately, I have not even tried coffee ever in my life.
You've never tried coffee?
I've never tried coffee.
Because you just told me before that you're some kind of an extraterrestrial, amazing human being because of your nutrition also.
I was raised in a very unique philosophy by my father, who was a medical doctor, but also had trained Jiu Jitsu his whole life since he was a little boy. And through Jiu Jitsu, he learned this unique nutritional regimen. And part of the philosophy is that we don't use any mind-altering substances. We believe that everything we need to feel good and to be happy, we have inside of us. So as coffee is a mind-altering substance, a stimulant, we avoid it in our diet, in our nutrition. And since I grew up with this, I never tried it, never developed the habit, so I don't have that desire, so no, I have never tried coffee. But I'm very happy to be here.
Of course, without coffee. You're with cream without the coffee.
Correct.
That is amazing. You know, our Romanian viewers will be very excited to actually learn a lot of lessons from you. Noah, my son, was doing judo in Romania, so we were looking for the best professor for him, and everyone that I talked with here in Miami recommended the Valente brothers.
Noah's a great child, and we were very happy
to
have him here, and I could feel his happiness and his energy, and I'm very excited for his future here in our school.
Please tell us how it all started. I know that it all started 67 years ago.
70 years ago.
70 years ago.
Actually, April 27th is going to be 70 years that my grandfather took my father as a young boy to sign up. Just like your son came yesterday, like you brought your son, my grandfather took my father. It's going to be on April 27th.
How will you celebrate?
70 years. Just on the mat, as we always do. And probably we're going to make a post on our social media celebrating that wonderful moment, which impacted our lives in so many ways, not just our ability as a family to defend ourselves, but the way we eat, the way we relate to others, most importantly, our confidence as human beings. My father, who was a very prominent plastic surgeon, he attributed a lot of his success to the confidence that he developed by training Jiu Jitsu. And that confidence is very unique, because as human beings in school, through reading books and learning math and science and literature, we develop our intellectual confidence, which is extremely important. But it is also important to develop our physical confidence. In Japanese, the samurai warriors, they had a quote which was Bunburi Odo. It's very important in their culture, which means that the way of life is in the combination of both physical confidence and intellectual confidence. So if you only have intellectual confidence, you're not complete. If you only have physical confidence, you're not complete. But when you have both, you create a very powerful combination that allows you to go through life without being intimidated, without feeling that you are inferior to anyone else, no matter what your status, no matter who you are. And I think that's very powerful. And we believe in this lifestyle, we believe in this art so much that my brothers and I decided to dedicate our lives to it. And 70 years after my father and my grandfather first started training, we are here and we are able to teach so many wonderful people in this school, and we're very happy to do what we do.
So your grandfather, Dr. Silo Valente,
Wow.
he was also a healer, kind of, right?
Yeah, he was a medical doctor.
A medical doctor.
But he specialized, he was one of the pioneers for homeopathy in Brazil.
So he was the first that started this.
Yes.
And then he took your dad when he was 14 years old, right?
Yes.
To start doing...
Actually before, because my grandfather, when he was in medical school, he had a friend from Japan. And he was a black belt from Japan. And he was the one who showed my grandfather the first techniques and really sparked this interest in Japanese martial arts. So when my father was 11, Hélio Gracie, my teacher, he had a very famous fight in Maracanã Stadium, the big soccer stadium in Rio, the biggest in the world at the time. And he fought the Japanese champion, Kimura. And my father, who was 11 years old, he went to watch that fight with my grandfather. And after that, he wanted to practice, he wanted to learn. So initially, he started in a judo school close to their home in Rio. He trained judo for 2 years, and then on April 27th, 1953, 70 years ago, my grandfather took my father to the Academia Gracie to learn from the legendary Hélio Gracie, who became their teacher, and then many years later, as we were born, our teacher as well.
So why is the Gracie Academy so famous? What happened in there exactly? And your grandmaster, Hélio Gracie also.
So a Jiu Jitsu legend who was traveling the world in the beginning of the 20th century called Mitsui Maeda, he had also his stage name was Conde Koma. Oh. And he was doing fights around the world. He was in America first, then he went to Western Europe, he traveled around Western Europe, and then he went to South America, North America, Central America. He traveled the whole world fighting. He became very famous worldwide. And he ended up in Brazil, and he moved in Brazil. He established a school in Brazil, in the north of Brazil, where the Gracie family was at the time. And the Gracies, they were Gracie brothers. They were 5 brothers. And Carlos Gracie, the oldest brother, he learned from Maeda in the north of Brazil. Hélio, my teacher, was still very young. Eventually they moved to Rio, and in Rio they started teaching Jiu Jitsu and promoting Jiu Jitsu. And the way that they found to promote Jiu Jitsu was similar to what the Japanese were doing around the world. They believed so much in the power and the effectiveness of Jiu Jitsu that they would challenge any of the boxers, or in Brazil there's a martial art called capoeira that was very popular at the time.
The one that looks like a dance.
Correct. Kind of. They're very good with their legs. They kick very effectively. So they would challenge all these fighters, and they would prove through those fights the effectiveness of Jiu Jitsu. And because of those fights, the media in Brazil at the time was following these fights, and you could find them in the newspapers at the time, and so they became very famous in Brazil, and that's why the Academia Gracie became very famous. And Hélio Gracie, my teacher, the younger brother...
So they put the basis, basically, of Jiu Jitsu.
Correct. In Brazil.
Worldwide.
Correct. First in Brazil. And this was actually happening in the beginning of the 20th century. It was happening around the world. Few people know this, but even the president of the United States, which was training Jiu Jitsu in the White House, Jiu Jitsu became very popular in the beginning of the 20th century. Later, it died out, and then you had Kung Fu and Karate, Bruce Lee, that took over. But in the beginning, in the 1900s, in the beginning of 1910s, 1920s, Jiu Jitsu was very big around the entire world. I'm sure even in Romania, if you look I'm talking about back then, I'm sure there was some Jiu Jitsu being practiced at the time, because the whole world wanted to learn Jiu Jitsu.
And I read that it's also the most important part of mixed martial arts, basically, right?
Well, mixed martial arts was developed because of Jiu Jitsu. The same spirit that I'm telling you, where the Gracies in Brazil were doing these challenge matches, was brought to America in the 80s by my teacher's oldest son, Rorion Gracie. He brought Jiu Jitsu to America, and he eventually created the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, which today is a billion-dollar industry. It's a huge MMA and everything that is.
You know,
so
one I
famous.
make a little bit.
No, go ahead.
One
Yeah.
of my very, very good friends, Diana Belbița, she's a fighter in the UFC now, and she's very young. She's I think like 22 years old, and she started with Jiu Jitsu.
Correct. So Jiu Jitsu started the UFC. So I was there for the UFC's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. So the first UFC, November 12th, 1993, I was there. I witnessed as they created the octagon, as they created the rules, as they set up that TV show. It was a TV show.
So you were never attracted to that? You never wanted to get into it?
No, I was, because a few reasons. Number one, you always have, when Jiu-Jitsu is demonstrated, when the purpose is not to make money, the purpose is to demonstrate the effectiveness of the art, then you're going to choose the person who is most well trained to do that job, to represent the art. So that representative is going to be demonstrating the art. So it's not about the person. It's about a demonstration of the effectiveness of the art. And number two, my main passion from the beginning was always to teach. I love to teach. I love to transmit the techniques of Jiu-Jitsu, and that's what I always focus on, trying to become the best teacher that I could be.
That is wonderful, and we thank you for that.
Because Jiu-Jitsu was not created to be a competition sport. Jiu-Jitsu was created to be an art of self-defense by the Japanese samurai warriors in old Japan. It was about survival. And so our purpose as a school and as teachers is to prepare our students to defend themselves in case someone tries to abuse them physically in the streets.
That is amazing.
That's the purpose of our classes, and the expression of Jiu-Jitsu at Valente Brothers, which we learned from our teacher, Hélio Gracie, is to teach Jiu-Jitsu as an art of self-defense. Now, others teach Jiu-Jitsu as a competition sport. Even the sport of Judo comes from Jiu-Jitsu and is another expression, another set of rules for people to practice and compete more focused on throwing techniques. BJJ is a sport where people compete more focused on the grappling techniques. We teach all elements of Jiu-Jitsu, including the throwing and the grappling, but also the striking, the self-defense against surprise attacks, and most importantly, the philosophy.
How do you get to be a grandmaster in Jiu-Jitsu? What's the highest point of a Jiu-Jitsu leader?
So to answer that question that you just asked, we organized something called the 753 Code.
I wanted to ask you that too. Yeah, what is that?
Because the 753 Code is a way for us to explain how to put all of these elements together. As you asked me, is it spirituality? Is it healthiness of the body? Is it the mind? Is it emotions? And the philosophy of Jiu-Jitsu, how can you explain that? And I learned such a wonderful and amazing philosophy from my father and from my Jiu-Jitsu teacher that I wanted to share this with our students. But the way I learned it was not on the mat. I was fortunate because my Jiu-Jitsu teacher was like a grandfather to us, because he taught my father for so many years. He taught my grandfather. My father was his doctor. So they were very close. They were best friends. And so he treated us like family. So I would learn these philosophical principles by talking to him in the living room after dinner, by spending weekends, by spending vacations in his house. So that's how we learned the philosophy, and I felt that it was not being shared with the students in regular classes, and we wanted to do that. So we organized 753 Code. It's 15 words, 7 words for spiritual wellness, 5 words for the health of the body, for physical wellness, and 3 words for emotional and mental wellness. And then if you understand all these principles, they're more than words, they're concepts, they're principles. And as you study each one of them and you understand each one of them, then you start understanding the philosophy of Jiu-Jitsu. And to me, that's the highest level. The highest level of Jiu-Jitsu mastery is when you learn how to apply the principles that you learn on the mat, off the mat, and when Jiu-Jitsu becomes a part of you, and you're living Jiu-Jitsu through everything you do.
Your father, Dr. Pedro Valente, was recognized by the New York Times in the 80s as the top 5 plastic surgeons in the world. That is absolutely amazing. He was also a grandmaster,
yes,
and believed that academics are nothing without sports and vice versa. How was it for you and your brothers to be raised by such a strong father?
Surreal. That's the only word I can find. And he was an artist and a craftsman. And he would he did not have a team of doctors working with him. He would do everything from the first drawing, the first cut, to the last stitch. Everything was him, because he did it as a form of art. He was an artist, and he was a perfectionist. And in that article from when he was 29 years old, they asked him about, how did you become so successful at such an early age? And he said, because I have a philosophy. And I feel that this philosophy gives me an edge over my fellow human beings. And then he talked about the nutritional aspect, about the spiritual aspect. And for me to read that right now is incredible, because I'm like, wow. I feel like we are here teaching this philosophy and we're doing something special and it's so powerful, but I'm like, wow, even before I was born, it already existed. And our Father, he raised us with this objective. It was a clear mission. He didn't just raise us, it was a project for him. And he wanted to make sure that this philosophy, no matter what we chose to do, that this philosophy was present in our lives, and that we would feel the same benefit that he felt in our lives. And he dedicated himself so much. And it's amazing because he was doing so many other things at the time. Right? And my father,
Top 5 plastic surgeon in the world.
But that's not just it. He was the chief doctor for one of the biggest soccer teams in Brazil, Vasco da Gama. He was involved with competition show jumping horses. And he trained the first woman to become national champion, because that's a sport where men and women compete together. Against each other. And this lady, who my father trained, became the first ever national champion, 2 times national champion in 1979. And then in 1983, she was actually a world champion. And my father went with her and they received the prize from Prince Philip.
What was her name?
In England, Elizabeth Assafi.
Wow.
She was an amazing champion. My sister today, Joana Valente, she's a wonderful writer and teacher. And my father and my mother, they both raised us in an amazing way. And their parenting really put us in a position to achieve the success that we have. We always like to say that the bravest of the Valente brothers, the most Valente of the Valente brothers, is our sister.
Really? Yes. Of course. So she was raised by your dad and your mom, and she had 3 amazing brothers.
Yes.
But
that's why we started Jiu Jitsu. It's a funny story, because my father was being bullied in school. Because people would always ask him, hey, are you really Valente? Are you really brave? And he would have to fight, and he would get beat up because he was skinny. And so my grandfather wanted to put him to fight and to learn, and that's why he started to practice. And that's part of the reason. And then I think, because the name of our school, Valente Brothers, I think it's very fitting.
It is.
Because it's the brave brothers, and that's what our school is all about. When it comes to the word Valente, it has to do with developing courage. We believe that courage can be developed. Some people say you're either born with it or not. We disagree with that completely.
I disagree.
People who are afraid, people who are scared, people who are insecure can develop a great sense of confidence and true courage by learning what we teach.
Through practice.
Through practice, absolutely. And also brothers. Brothers is not just about the 3 of us, but it's also about the brotherhood, the family atmosphere that we have here, where everyone who comes in feels like a brother, feels like they are part of our family, and that's very important for us.
So I thought it was really amazing listening to your podcast. You said with your brother Guy that you guys asked your dad, so what if someone asks us, oh, are you really brave, or is that just a name? And what did he answer?
My grandfather say, no, it's only a name, right? My grandfather was a very humble person, and it's always better to be humble, right? When you're humble, I'm Valente only in my name. That's what my grandfather told my father to say, because people who show off too much are usually insecure. Only truly confident people can be genuinely humble.
Humble and kind.
And kind. And we believe that that's one of the great transformative powers of Jiu Jitsu, is that as people develop their confidence, they become more kind, they become more tolerant, they become more peaceful.
Because they're way more confident.
They have nothing to prove to themselves or to anybody else. Right? People usually are too aggressive because they are trying to prove something.
And because they lack self-control.
Correct.
And Jiu Jitsu
Yes. Oh, yes.
helps you also with
Self-control, emotional balance is one of the words in the 753 code. In Japanese, it's called fudoshin. It's one of the most important concepts, which is your ability not to be too affected by things that happen around you, good or bad. That ability to maintain a sense of balance, a sense of control over your emotions. And even when you are in extreme situations, in an emergency, in a life and death situation, that you're able to breathe and stay present so that you can act in the best possible way. You know, there's a very famous quote by Miyamoto Musashi, who was the most famous samurai warrior of all times, that says, "The way is in training." Such a simple quote, yet so deep, because it tells us that we can become anything we want to become. There's no such thing as, oh, I was born like this, oh, I'm short-tempered, oh, my personality. No. Through training, you can change. Through training, you can give up any bad habits. Through training, you can become anything or anyone you want to become. It's just a matter of dedication and effort. And number one, believing, intention. Believing that you can do it. If you believe that you can do it, it's always possible.
So you teach all of this to the kids who come here on the mat?
It's a process. Obviously, we cannot teach everything at once, but yes, we do. For example, when the kids are testing for their belts, they have to say a certain number, depending on the belt, of words from the 753 code. And in every class with the kids, we discuss the 753 code. We talk about the words. They have to know the words. So for example, when they're testing for their yellow belt, they need to know 3 words from the 753 code. When they're testing for the green belt, which is the highest belt in the youth program, they have to know every one of the 15 words. They have to know what they mean. So yes, the 753 code is part of our curriculum, is part of our class, and it's something that we want all our students to learn.
So we know about your grandfather and your father and this strong line, the strong paternal line in your family. Mm-hmm. But what about your mother?
My mother's great. She lives in Rio, in Brazil, and she was truly amazing because my father, as I told you, was very busy. So somebody had to be in the house and somebody had to take care of us and somebody had to really, because my father brought this amazing
philosophy. Someone needed to be human.
No, that, yes, but also my father brought this amazing philosophy and she believed in it so much for our education, even if in many ways she was not able to live that in her own life, but she believed in it for us, and she was the one that was promoting that on a day-to-day basis, and she was instrumental. You know, my mother is a very classy woman, a very intelligent woman. And you know, we were very fortunate because her father, my grandfather, and my grandmother, they were amazing people. And I was very close to my grandfather growing up. And he was a very, very successful businessman in Brazil in the textile business, in the fashion. Some of the most important designers in the 50s would come to Brazil to buy his cotton fabric. Givenchy, the biggest ones would be in Brazil, and he was very respected as a businessman, very experienced, and a true intellectual, a very brilliant man, and also so kind and generous as a businessman, as a business leader. He helped so many people who worked for his factory. He had thousands of employees. He helped them get their own home and also, you know, develop themselves and grow financially. So he was known for being a very generous business leader and industrialist, and I learned a lot from him, especially when it came to history and the intellectual aspect. You know, he was a great grandfather.
So your mom chose to stay in Rio. She never moved to the United States.
No, my father as well. They always lived in Rio. I was the first one to come.
Yeah, that's where I want to come. Like, so they decided to send you to the United States and study here.
Yes.
So what did you choose to study?
Business.
Oh, you did business
International
school.
Finance and Marketing, and then I got my MBA as well. I never expected to do Jiu Jitsu as a profession. Within my first few months here in Miami, UFC 1 happened, and Jiu Jitsu exploded, and it became super popular, and everybody on campus wanted to learn Jiu Jitsu. I was living in the dorms at the time. And so I started teaching friends, and I ended up creating a club.
You came here at the University
18 years old to
of
study
Miami?
at the University of Miami, yes. and I was living in the dorms, and I was
You were 18 only.
18. I was playing the trumpet in the marching band.
I saw you in the videos. Yeah, I have to ask you about that too.
Yes. So I was just a college kid having fun, and then I started teaching Jiu Jitsu because I loved it and people wanted to learn it. And I started a club, and little by little, then my brothers came and helped me, and I realized that I could have a successful business by teaching what I love, by doing what I love to do, and then things naturally happen. And with the help of my brothers, we created Valente Brothers.
And you decided to stay in Miami when?
Well, when I finished my MBA, I had to decide, am I going to stay or am I going to work with business? And
You
because
were
the plan was to come here
how
for
old
4
were
years
you?
and go back. 24, 22 when I finished my undergraduate studies, and then 24 when I finished my MBA.
And then your brothers, when did they come here?
Everyone came when they turned 18, when they graduated high school in Brazil, they would come here for college.
For college,
Yes,
yeah, all of them.
yes,
What did they
yes.
study?
Guy studied sport. He already knew what I was doing, so he did sports management, sports marketing. He also got a master's degree in that.
Because you guys already knew that you wanted to open
yes.
the
And
Valente Brothers
he always
school.
liked the idea of being a sports manager, so he loved that. But yes, we were already involved in that. And then Joaquin, he graduated in criminology because of the work that we do with law enforcement and with military. He loves that. He also specializes in firearms instruction and shooting. We have VB Tactical here, where we teach people also how to defend themselves with a gun.
Seriously?
Absolutely,
Wow.
yes. And,
So yeah, because I wanted to. So that is because of Joaquim, the part of with FBI and.
Well, we were always teaching Jiu Jitsu and specific hand-to-hand combat for the military and the FBI. That's something that, from the time of the Japanese, was already happening. But my brother, Joaquin is the one who started the VB Tactical, which is how to then complement, because in the era of the samurai, they used the sword. That was their weapon of choice. But the weapon that we use now in our world, the most efficient weapon, is the gun, the firearm. Many people choose to use that for self-defense. And so we applied our teaching methodology that we have for teaching people hand-to-hand combat, applying it to teaching firearms instruction. And Joaquin is one of the best in the world when it comes to that. He's so passionate, he loves it, and he's extremely good in teaching people how to defend themselves with a firearm.
So he didn't choose, even though he studied criminology,
Yes.
he didn't choose a career
No, I think he had by then, because Joaquin came in 2007, he's 12 years younger than me. So I think by then he already knew that he wanted to work with us and
to teach people.
Yes, because he was already helping us. He would always come during the summer vacation and stay here with us, and he was helping us with our communication with our grandmaster in Brazil, with our teacher.
He was the one that was that spent most of the time with the grandmaster, right?
We all spent a lot of time. Maybe he did even more, but we all spent a lot of time, because remember, when I was starting, he was not even born. So I did it first, then Ghid, then he did. But he spent a lot.
No, you're the youngest. Did you forget?
That's true.
That's a
Don't tell
joke.
everybody. Don't tell everybody. But yes, he spent a lot of time. But when I was teaching already here, and I had a question, and he would go to our teacher's home, and he would go with the camera, and he would film, and he would send me the videos. So he was very instrumental in that effort. So people always say, well, but you started, you're the most important one. I say, absolutely not. It's a group effort, it's a team effort. We all work together, and I just happened to be born first. But the three of us are equally responsible for the success of Valente Brothers.
That is wonderful. Yeah, but the family is the backbone. You've always had the base. They sustained all of what you were doing here.
Yes.
Your story is absolutely
There's a quote that I love
fascinating.
from a Greek philosopher that says something along the lines of, when brothers agree, no fortress is so strong as their common life, right? So this unity with my brothers and my sister, she lives in Brazil, but she's very close to us as well, is something that is a source of so much power for us.
I saw on your Instagram that it's one of your favorites, and use it as a caption under your pictures with your brothers.
Whenever it's their birthday,
So-
I'm pretty repetitive. Every birthday I put the same quote.
It's repetitive, but it's very deep. I totally understand what you're saying because I love my sisters very much. We're Siamese. I totally understand the bond and the love. And I think that, yes, when brothers love each other and they're together, beautiful things are happening, like your family. And it is absolutely amazing. Yeah, that is wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your sisters, because we didn't get to talk about her. So she's in Brazil,
Yes.
and she has a
champion.
family.
She does.
there?
She has 2 daughters who already train as well.
Of course.
And yes, and they're amazing. One is 7 years old. The little one is 2 years old, and they're amazing. They love horses. My sister, because my father believed that, and this is something he took from the Japanese warriors and also from the example of his teacher, Hélio Gracie, that children should be trained in 3 activities: swimming, fighting, and horseback riding, right? And all of us were trained in those 3 things. We all learned how to ride horses, we all learned how to swim, and we all learned how to fight. And in the end, my sister, she fell in love with the horses and she chose her path through that, and we chose the path through Jiu Jitsu, through
So
fighting.
she's a champion in
She's
the equestrian.
She was a very, very, very high level professional in show jumping and in equestrian arts. And she's also an amazing teacher. She teaches in Brazil, in São Paulo. Her husband is also
What
a
does she
professional
teach?
rider. Show jumping.
Oh.
Yes,
Wow.
yes, horseback riding. And she's amazing. My niece, her daughter is already 7 years old, is already a champion. She won her first competition with horseback riding in Brazil. And hopefully one day she'll move here. She can do it here.
Hopefully, right?
We're
So
trying to
you all
convince her
can
family. Yes,
be
yes,
together.
yes.
Yeah, we want her to come because I'll
Correct.
take my
Yes,
son.
yes, we're trying.
And how is life in Miami? You have an amazing, beautiful a Russian wife and a gorgeous son.
Yes.
When did you meet your wife?
13 years ago, 2010, through a student who was a Russian hockey player and a very good friend of mine. We became very close. And then he eventually introduced me to his wife's twin sister. And that's my wife. Yes.
That is amazing.
And I love them, and I was so grateful that they introduced me to Diana, my wife. And we've been together since, and we have a wonderful son. And Miami is amazing. I love Miami. It's, to me, the best city in the world.
I agree.
It's so good. I love the beach. I'm from Rio, so I love going to the beach. I love the weather and the mix. You know, you have people here from all over the world. And for me, that is very, very special.
Tell us about Perfect Liana. I know that she's a writer. And does she practice jiu-jitsu as well?
She does. She started as soon as we met.
Oh, so
back
as
in
soon as you
2010.
met,
Yes,
she
back
started.
in 2010, and she loves it. She's very good at it. In our family, you know, we believe so much in jiu-jitsu, it would be crazy.
She had to.
Correct. Like my brother's wife Laura also trains, and she's amazing. So we.
What did you guys do for your wedding? Was it like jiu-jitsu?
Almost. But we love it so much that it's something that anyone we love, anyone who's in our lives, we try to bring them in because we feel something so special. It's not like a sport that, I like basketball, no, it's a lifestyle, and it's something that I think anyone can benefit from, this beautiful practice. And so we're very fortunate that our wives, Joaquin's still single, but my wife and Guy's wife, they love it.
What languages do you guys speak in your house?
We speak 3 languages. So when I talk to my wife, I speak in English.
But you know Russian now.
I do, but not, we communicate in English. But when she...
So your son speaks Russian, English, and Portuguese?
Correct. So I only speak to him in Portuguese, 100%. She only speaks with him in Russian. And in school he learns English. So yes, and a little bit of Spanish also. So he's on his way to knowing 4 languages at least.
What is the most important legacy that you want to pass on to your to your son?
The wholesome philosophy that can create, I think, ultimate fulfillment.
I'm very curious, how do the two cultures mix together, the Russian and
Mixes very well. I see a lot of similarities in the
Right?
way we are and the way that Eastern Europeans are as well. And I think a lot of people think of Eastern European people as cold, but it's not true. Maybe there's that in the beginning when you don't know them, but it's a very warm culture, a very family-oriented culture, so similar to what we have in Brazil. And so that connection is very powerful, and I think it's a great mix, and I think my son benefits from that. And all of our social media is like that, our Instagram page, our YouTube channel, everything we have on social media, all the Valente brothers pages, the idea is exactly that, to promote our lifestyle.
So, how many Valente Brothers schools are in the United States? And are they abroad as well? Do you plan on going in other places as well?
It was never our plan, it was never our objective to expand too much. Because we, like I told you about our father, who liked to start from the first line to the last stitch, doing everything himself. We believe that Jiu Jitsu is a craftsmanship, it's a work of art, and we like to do it hands-on ourselves. And our expansion is based exclusively on students of ours who come here and who stay for many, many years, and eventually they want to teach, and we support them.
At the end, I will ask you to give us all life advice from your wisdom.
Be the best that you can be. Don't settle for mediocrity. Believe in what you have inside of you. Believe in your potential. But when you make mistakes, see them as a positive, as a learning opportunity, rather than getting down on yourself. Be kind to yourself. Respect yourself and do your best. That's what we're here to do our best. Be precise with everything you do. Be impeccable with your lifestyle. Have the intention to be the best that you can be, and life will smile to you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Professor Pedro
Thank you
Valente.
very much. It was a pleasure.
I'm so grateful to make this interview with you, and I'm so grateful that people like you exist in our world and they really make it better. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Iar vouă vă mulțumesc că ați stat cu noi. Sper că v-a plăcut interviul nostru. Vă sărut pe toți de aici de la Miami și ne vedem duminica viitoare la Coffee and Cream. Seară minunată!